Chapter 14. Mother and Daughter. After Gui Momo left, Shen King walked out from behind the dividing screen. She climbed up to Ran Wan Yun's side and clung onto her mother as she spoke with a tone that was unable to hide the anger. "Mother, Shen Miao is not willing to give up His Highness Prince Ding. What should I do?" Among the three households in Shen family, the first household was undoubtedly holding the highest official position, and it is very possible if Shen Miao would ask Shen Xin to request a marriage for her. But she also loved Prince Ding, so what was she considered as if Shen Miao succeed? His Highness Prince Ding was such a handsome and talented person. How can he be possessed by a stupid and ignorant Shen Miao? Every time she thought about this, Shen King could not resign her heart to it 100 times. "Rest assured, in this Shen residence, no one can be bigger than you," Ran Wan Yun said. "Shen Miao has a stupid character, and there is nothing to fear about her. Your mother naturally has ways to let her not marry His Highness Prince Ding, but it is you," she sighed. "There is no harm in seriously looking at the people from Q Shui Yan. You really think that the second girl is a good person? You have such thoughts, but second girl may not have it." "Shen Ye?" Shen King wrinkled her brows. "How is it possible?" Shen King said. "Even if she truly likes His Highness Prince Ding, Third Shu's rank is not higher than eldest Bo, and naturally would not be able to say anything. No matter how one see, it cannot be anything to fear from." Ren Wang Yun pointed at Shen King's head as she rebuked. "How can I rest assured with you? Your third Shen is a formidable person. In the beginning, your third Shu—" Seemingly realizing that these words should not be said in front of children, Ren Wan Yun suddenly kept quiet. She only said, "In short, you need not take fifth girl at heart, as mother will naturally handle the matter." "Thanking mother," Shen King sweetly said. Both mother and daughter smiled. Inside Q Shui Yan, Chen Ro Chu was sitting at the table writing. She was a female from a scholarly family and had unbounded talents. Even though she was a married woman, she still often liked to read books and calligraphy. Shen Ye stood behind her, clad in a yellow dress that made her body slim, just like a younger version of Chen Ro Chu. "Mother, why did you say that to Gui Momo?" she could not help to ask after a long time. Gui Momo came over once, but unexpectedly Chen Ro Chu not only prevented Gui Momo from stopping Shen Miao from continuing to be in love with His Highness Prince Ding, but also let Gui Momo advise Shen Miao that His Highness Prince Ding was a good place to be married to. "Won't this make her more determined to marry His Highness Prince Ding?" Shen Ye complained. Chen Ro Chu placed the brush down and gently sighed before pulling Shen Ye's hands to the couch to sit and said, "Yeah, didn't mother tell you before that whatever things one does, especially within this house, must be done in a big round? This is that if anything would to happen in the future, one would blame the heavens and earth, but would not blame you." Shen Ye shook her head. "Mother, I do not understand." Chen Ro Chu smiled. This daughter of hers was gentle and talented, and she was also not stupid, but she was after all too young. It was most likely Third Master Shen doted her too much, thus she did not know how dangerous the inner courtyard was. Unlike her in the beginning, when she was in the minister's residence, there were a bunch of older and younger sisters, in yongs and concubines. Which one of them was easy to deal with? That is why, after she was married, she firmly grasped Third Master Shen in the palm of her hands. But the most regrettable thing is that she was unable to give birth to a son. No matter how much Third Master Shen doted her, if there was no son, it meant that there was no weight at her side. Sooner or later, the Third Master Shen would need to give the concubines soup to ensure no birth. At that time, what a scene would that be? So she must educate this daughter very well. "Ya, what do you think of little Five?" she asked softly. Shen Ye thought for a while and replied, She doesn't know anything about accounting or current affairs, not good at the 4 scholarly arts, and she is stupid and ignorant and is not articulate. If it was not for eldest Beau's reputation, no one would give her any face. Even if it was Shu daughters would also have more bearing than her. If anyone were to hear this, they would be shocked. These words of demeaning Shen Miao to be worthless actually came from her gentle and soft Tangje. From what everyone knew, Shen Miao's best friend was Shen Ye. Perhaps it was like this in the past, Chen Rochu said. She shook her head. But after falling into the water, from the way I see, Shen Miao has changed a lot. Why does mother say that? Shen Ye asked. Chen Rochu also did not know why there was such a feeling. Perhaps it was the peak words that a little girl said in a moment of anger, but Chen Rochu had seen a lot of people, thus as compared to her self-declared astute second sister-in-law, she saw it clearly that Shen Miao became smarter. Her dialogue with old Furen at Rongjing Tong, as well as the appearance, was much different from before. Could it be that the matter with Prince Ding gave her such a big blow? Or was it that there was an expert helping her? In any case, one must not take it lightly at all. Perhaps it was because of the attack from Prince Ding, but Ya-er, mother has spoken to you before. A smart female would not deal with other females, she would only deal with men. Since you are committed to His Highness Prince Ding, why should your sights be on Shen Miao? No matter how much power your eldest Beau has, in this world there was no logic that a man would adore a stupid and ignorant female. His Highness Prince Ding is a royalty, and if he were to really marry such an unbearable female, wouldn't that be the greatest joke under the skies? But Shen Ye felt some grievances. Listen to mother's words. You must not only not alienate from Shen Miao, but also be friends with her like before. You have to double up the hard work so that everyone can see your talent and beauty. The more outstanding you are, it would appear that she is more stupid and foolish. Chen Rochu smiled, as though she was saying general things, but each word exposed her hidden motives. I let Gui Momo persuade her to continue to be in love with Prince Ding, so that the stupid girl would wholeheartedly dive in, and that would make her a laughingstock. Thus, His Highness Prince Ding would only be doubly disgusted with her. So, in this way, Shen Ye seemed to understand a little bit. Chen Rochu stroked her head. You are a clever child and should be able to understand mother's intention, so you have to persuade her to continue to love Prince Ding and also make her fool herself in front of Prince Ding. It is only by doing so His Highness Prince Ding would notice the more outstanding you. Even if everyone under the sky wants His Highness Prince Ding to marry Shen Miao, you will win if the person in His Highness's heart is you. Mother, to say such a thing out loud, Shen Ye embarrassingly buried her head into Chen Rochu's arms. I understand. Chen Rochu smiled. In the beginning, there were also many obstructions to the marriage to Third Shen Master, and that time Third Shen Master was considered handsome and talented, so there were many matchmakers that went over to discuss about marriage. Why was she only selected? It was because of an encounter at the temple where she was wearing a white dress playing keen under a tree, and Third Master Shen heard her. Third Master Shen took her as a celestial being and insisted on marrying her as his wife when he returned. Third Master Shen loved to listen to the keen, and his favorite color is white. See, so many females were fighting, but it was her that became the final winner, and it was because she knew from the beginning that she was only dealing with one man. So what of the 3D daughters of Shen family? Only her Ya-er can deal with His Highness Prince Ding. Chapter 13. Secretly Ganging Up. A cool breeze started up during the night as autumn neared, turning the weather cooler by the day. The Ding capital was in the north, making the cold more surprising. Under the candlelight, the young female held a book, reading it slowly as she reclined against the couch. She did not realize that the tea beside her had turned cold as she continued reading her book in a trance. Bai Lu stared blankly at her young lady. It was as if, in a short span of one night, her mistress had become different from before. Even quietly reading as she was now would be unusual, as Shen Miao previously hated to read. But with the way things were now, if she did not know that it was her own young lady, Bai Lu would have thought that she had come across a noble Furin. Bai Lu did not really understand how a young lady would have such an imposing manner as she stood dazedly in her position. She only recovered when Xuanzang strode over and nudged her to reprimand softly. Standing here foolishly for what? Xuanzang then walked over to place a cloak around Shen Miao and warmly advised, "Young lady, it seems that the time is no longer early, and there is a need to go to Guangwen Tong tomorrow. It would be better to rest early." Shen Miao shook her head. "Go and rest first. I will read for a while longer." What kind of reasoning would there be for a mistress to not sleep while her maid rested? Xuanzang could not do anything. She wanted to persuade her, but was held back by Gu Yu, who was changing the tea, and pulled out to the outer room with Bai Lu. "Gu Yu, what is it?" Bai Lu did not understand. "Young lady's health just recovered. Why did you not go up to persuade her to rest?" "How did I not persuade?" Gu Yu's head ached. "Would the current young lady listen to my words? She has been reading books for an entire day, and I suspect it should be the homework from her teacher, and young lady has made up her mind to complete it tonight. What other choice do I have?" She glanced back to the room worriedly. When Shen Miao was formerly timid, she would always want the advice of others. Now that she was no longer timid, when she made up her mind, no one dared refute. As she was serving close by, Gu Yu felt one would not dare to refuse any orders of Shen Miao. Just speaking plainly like that would also reveal an imposing stance. Even when Master flew into a rage, it wasn't as scary as this. Gu Yu sighed. In the room, Shen Miao was still reading. She was seriously studying the contents of the book and did not leave any detail behind. If one were to look closely, they would have found that the book she was holding was Ming Qi official annals. Other than the big events that had occurred from the founding of the country to the current Ming Qi, she was only familiar with the events that would happen in the next few decades and decided to prepare some methods to prevent the tragedies from happening. As an enemy's enemy is your friend, she had to find out who the vassal families were and what their current situations were. If these vassal families reached their end, it would soon be the Shen family's turn. The steps the emperor took to eradicate these families were much nearer. As per what Shen Miao remembered, if there was no other mishaps, there would be a big catastrophe next month. Before Shen Xin returned, only she could support the Shen residents, while she also had to defend from those wolves from the East Courier. As Shen Miao presumed, that night, Gui Momo took the specialties that she had brought back from her trip to visit Rongjing Tong. After she entered, Zhang Mama, who worked by old Shen Furin's side, was pulled away by her, as Gui Momo kept talking about Shen Miao's disobedient ways and how she would frequently lash out with words of anger. How would Zhang Mama not understand her intentions? After accompanying her to speak a few rather neutral words, Gui Momo asked Zhang Mama to put in a good word for her with old Shen Furin before leaving. Just as she left Rongjing Tong courtyard, Ren Wanyun's maid, Zhang Long, walked over and smiled. "Gui Momo, I was looking for you." "Oh." When Gui Momo squinted her eyes to see better and saw Zhang Long, she also smiled. "Why is Miss Zhang Long looking for me?"
"It is of no big matter. It was that our mistress heard that you know a place that sells rouge, and the rouge was especially pretty. Thus one looked for you to ask where it can be bought." This was obviously an excuse indicating that Ren Wanyun was looking for Gui Momo to have some private words. Gui Momo was well aware of it and went along with Shang Long. "Oh, this is a small matter. If Madame wants to listen, I will tell Madame the place. Speaking of that rouge, many of the young ladies and madams of official families love to use it." Following Zhang Lang to Kai Yun Wan, she noticed the maids outside had already been sent away. Ren Wan Yun sat on the couch. As the second Shen master was still outside entertaining and had yet to return, she was casually doing some needlework, was most likely embroidering the edge of a pouch while she ate from a plate of grapes. This was a rare item, as one would not be able to find any grapes in Ding capital at this time of year. Only the second master had the ability to obtain a basket of them to let the females in his own quarter eat. Gui Momo spit in her heart. Although the second household did not ill-treat the first household on the surface, whatever Shen Miao used and ate only looked magnificent on the outside, but were actually things that even merchant families were unable to sell off. On the topic of food, Shen Miao would not have the opportunity to have grapes. As she was thinking, Ren Wanyun finally put down the needlework in her hand and said, "Gui Momo." Gui Momo quickly recovered herself and answered, "Mistress, this old servant is here." Ren Wanmian was already 40 years old, and even though she had maintained herself excellently, there were still fine lines at the corners of her eyes. But as she sat there, wearing clothes cut from good material and with manners like a Furin in charge of the household, even if she smiled, there was some imposing appearance. She said, "Young Lady Mahaddle." Gui Momo yeared in her heart. Who did not know that the East Quarter couldn't wait for the West Quarter to be in trouble? How would Ren Wanyun have such good intentions? This was all to pull the wool over people's eyes. Sure enough, Ren Wanyun continued. "In these few days, Little Five has probably been unhappy regarding the matter of falling into the water, and since eldest brother and sister are not around, as only a Shen, whatever I do will be wrong. If one to hear anything, it could only be heard from you." This meant that Ren Wanyin wanted Gui Momo to report Shen Miao's every move to her. Gui Momo quickly said, "It is fifth young lady's fortune to have Madame's concern. But from what this old servant sees, fifth young lady is indeed angry about the matter of falling into the water. The situation these recent days have changed quite a bit, even to the point where she has also distanced herself from this old servant. Not touching other matters, just today, this old servant was punished and lost 3 months of salary for nothing." She frowned. This old servant heard that fifth young lady had fallen into the water and was so anxious that one did not care if one's grandson was still sick. But who knew that fifth young lady would lash out at this old servant, making it so this old servant's heart could not beat at ease? Ren Wanyin was somewhat impatient listening to unrelated matters and asked, "At the end, it is still because of her heart. Then what is Gui Momo's view? Was there any change in attitude from Little Five pertaining to His Highness, Prince Ding?" This was what she wanted to ask most of all. Gui Momo's eyes turned and she said, "Fifth young lady seems to want to draw a line with His Highness, Prince Ding, and did not want this old servant to mention those matters today. But this old servant has followed fifth young lady for so many years and understands her temper. Regarding the issue of His Highness, Prince Ding, fifth young lady would not give up this easily. These words were only a young female's exasperation and cannot be taken as the truth." After the words were spoken, a look of ruthlessness appeared on Ren Wanyun's face.
Chapter 16. Boil the Hound Once the Rabbit is Caught. The Su family was a large clan that was a level above the other clans, as only high-ranking officials were able to hold the position of managing the matters of the military horse and their rations.
Su family status of managing the military horses was already in place since the founding of Ming Qi and was managed very well. Ping Nanbo, Su Yu, was no exception. From his perspective, the Su family was splendid and would certainly continue on for a long time. Perhaps loyal officials would have thought that as long as one was to faithfully work, the imperial family would not treat them unfairly. But since the ancient times, accompanying one's sovereign was like accompanying a tiger. In this world, who would be able to predict it clearly? Su Yu would be 40 years old when the year ends and could be considered quite loving to his fern. Even though he had a few concubines, they only gave birth to daughters. Since they were only 2D sons, he was always very strict with their education. His eldest son, Su Mingfeng, started to serve in the government at a young age and, similar to him, was in charge of the military horses and in fact did better than Su Yu in this half of year. Just some time ago, Su Mingfeng collaborated with the veterinarians in the Imperial Medical Court and reformed some guidelines regarding the military horses, and because of that, the number of war horses that died due to the plague dropped by half. This was a great merit. After the military statistics were put up next month, Su Mingfeng would definitely be rewarded. Bestowing rewards was secondary. The main thing was that this represented glory and honor. Su Yu was past his prime, and currently Su Mingfeng was of the right age when the son should succeed his father's career. Thus, it was time to expand Su Mingfeng's reputation. If Su Mingfeng was so outstanding, maybe he would become the next confidant and talent of the heir apparent to the throne. Su Yu was naturally happy because of his remarkable eldest son, but his youngest son gave him a headache. Probably because his youngest son was only born when his fern was rather old, thus his fern doted him a lot, and he developed a spoiled personality. Not to mention about being as outstanding as his oldest son, even when compared to his peers he would be found lacking. As Su Minglang was not the eldest son, naturally he need not inherit the title of heir, so it did not matter if he was a little dumb. But Su Yu had an unbending personality and would not tolerate any deficiency in his own son. In order to correct this, he would test his homework after Su Minglang returned from the academy each day. His little son would suffer the reprimands and his fern would cover up his shortcomings, making it seem like all hell would break loose. But this day, Su Yu was in the study discussing some things with Su Mingfeng. Both father and son had endless things to talk about on the topic of military horses. Master Yu was elated. To have such an outstanding son, what could he be unsatisfied with? As they discussed, they started to talk about Su Mingfeng's bestowment in the following month. In my opinion, this time His Majesty will definitely confer an official title. For the time being, don't mention bestowment of precious stones or whatever. Father is only hoping your career will be more stable. Now that the Shengnu have begun to stir, attention needs to be on the military horses. Mingfeng, as long as you are able to obtain His Majesty's high regard, in the future the Su family can only go further. Your younger brother is still young, so you still need to carry the Su family on your shoulders. Su Mingfeng nodded his head in agreement. He was in his youth, and there was an upright and awe-inspiring look to his brows. However, his eyes could not help but reveal a little pride, as it was the period where youths were determined not to fall short of expectations. Not only from the affirmation from his father, he was elated that the importance of the matters he managed had been steadily increasing. Both father and son were in a good mood when the servant at the door announced, "Master, second young master has returned." It was just at that time when second young master Su Minglang returned from the academy. Every day when Su Minglang finished his lessons, he would always be called into Master Su's study to be tested on what he learned, and there was no exception. Master Su was suppressing the beginnings of a headache as he first looked at his outstanding oldest son, then looked at his second son, who was as stupid as a little pig, and felt that it was somewhat comical. Every day Su Minglang came to the study, and by the end Su Yu would roll in anger. Today was no different. Su Minglang slowly ended the study, and his lips curled up as he called out, "Father, eldest brother." He was just like a little round ball, silly yet adorable. Su Mingfeng stroked his younger brother's head. "Minglang, did everything go well in class today?" Su Minglang pursed his lips and did not speak. Every time he did that, it would mean that it did not go well, not one bit. He had been reprimanded by his teacher. Master Su put on a stern face and ordered, "Extend your palm out." Su Minglang shrank a bit and stretched his hands in misery. One could see a few red marks on the fair and tender palms. If these weren't the strokes of a ruler, what else would they be? Master Su had a look of expectation, but it was Su Mingfeng who felt anguished for his younger brother as he asked, "How could this teacher beat this heavily? He's just a child." It is all of your coddling that spoiled him to this level. Master Su flew into a rage after hearing his oldest son and angrily asked, "What went wrong today?" Little Su Minglang hesitated before speaking apprehensively. "The teacher asked me to write about the fox grieves when the rabbit dies, but I was unable to memorize it." "How do I want you to scold you?" Master Su had a look of pain in his face. "You can't even memorize words. Look at the other young masters at your age. Which one of them are like you? When your eldest brother was your age, he was already reading books on military horses. The face of our family has almost been completely thrown away by you." Su Mingfeng was about to try to persuade his father when he heard his second younger brother sobbing out, "Even though I was unable to memorize 'the fox grieves when the rabbit dies,' I was able to memorize 'boiling the hound once the rabbit is caught,' and it is longer by 2 words. Since both have the same meaning, isn't it the same if one were to memorize 'boiling the hound once the rabbit is caught'?" What nonsense! Master Su simply did not know what else to say. Su Mingfeng smiled and said, "Second younger brother, these 2 phrases do not have the same meaning." "Then what do they mean?" Little Su Minglang raised his head to ask. "The meaning of 'the fox grieves when the rabbit dies' is that the rabbit died and the fox realized that it would suffer the same fate and felt sad. But 'boiling the hound once the rabbit is caught' means that once the rabbit was killed and the hunting dog had no more value, it would be cooked. It means to say that once a thing has no more value and is of no more interest, then the tool can be discarded. Boiling the hound once the rabbit is caught and destroying the bridge after crossing are somewhat similar." Su Mingfeng was a good elder brother, as he patiently answered his younger brother's question. But Su Minglang shook his head and still had a look of confusion. Since both happen after the rabbit is dead, it should be treated the same. Anyway, the rabbit is dead. Su Mingfeng was about to explain, but saw his father suddenly look shocked and softly repeated, "The rabbit is dead." "Yes." Su Minglang opened his palm out as his plump rounded face looked innocent yet stubborn. "Anyway, the both rabbits are dead. Isn't the meaning that once the rabbit dies, the fox and dog will be out of luck? Since everyone is out of luck, then both phrases should still mean the same thing." It was the natural order to boil the hound once the rabbit was caught. For a fable to be one, there was definitely a basis on the major principles in life. The rabbit died, but the fox was cleverer than the hound and would have seen his own ending. But who was the hunting hound? What would be the outcome of the hound that helped its master hunt for the rabbit? Su Yu's expression gradually sank.
Chapter 17. Who Taught You? A major event occurred in early October. Su Mingfeng, the eldest young master Su, the heir of the Nanping Bo family in the Ding capital, suddenly came down with a serious illness and had to recuperate at home. Ping Nan Bo's heart ached for his favorite son, so he and his Furin stayed at home to take care of the eldest young master Su, temporarily disregarding matters on the military horses. His Majesty bestowed some things to express his sympathy before arranging a new official to take over the management matters. The people of Ding capital all sighed with regret over this turn of events. Eldest young Master Su was a talented youth who had achieved a great merit shortly after becoming an official, but just when his future seemed limitless and his rise meteoric, he suddenly succumbed to this serious illness. Even if one was a talented genius, if 3 to 5 years passed before his return, there would no longer be a foothold for him in court. The commoners saw it as such, but his colleagues in court were uncertain. Some wise people said, "This isn't any illness, it is obviously avoiding a disaster." Originally, one would think that this Su family had been adding oil onto the blaze, only to find out that the fire would burn them up. Who would have thought that they would see the situation clearly and take such a drastic measure to deal with it? Shen Miao was pruning the begonia flowers in the middle of the courtyard when these things reached her ears. These days in Guangwen Tong, as everyone had something new to say about the eldest young Master Su, no one paid much attention to her. As a result, she had a few rare days of leisure. "Young lady now likes all these plants," Gu Yu smiled as she said. "This begonia flower blooms really well." The deep red begonia flower's petals gave a bit of color to the bleakness of autumn.
When she was the Empress, she was learning to manage the inner palace, helping Fu Shiyi win over the officials, was a hostage in Qin country, and fought with Mei Furin. Most of her time she was living in the midst of manipulations and quarrels. How would she have the mood to casually prune flowers? "Do you know why the begonia blossoms so brilliantly?" she asked. Even though Guyu did not understand why young lady would ask such a question, she still replied with a smile. "This is from the seeds that the steward bought from the outside. It was said that they were expensive seeds. Furin also praised that this type of begonia looks particularly good in the autumn." Shen Miao gently shook her head. How would that be the reason? Just like the palace, a land of cold and gloom, even the flowers outside the cold palace were all exquisite. It was because under those flowers lay many bones. In this world, there would always be the darkest reasons for the brightest things. The Su family has realized this principle. What would they do now? She smiled slightly. In the residence of Ping Nan Bo. The courtyard of eldest young Master Su was so tightly guarded that other than the close servants and family, no one else could enter. One could only smell the heavy scent of medication as Master Su closed the doors to all guests and refused to see any outsiders. As the good friend of the Su heir, little Marquis Xie Jingxing naturally paid the sick person a visit. The Xie family's carriage was parked outside the Su residence, and the servants were moving the herbs down in great difficulty. These herbs were all placed in wooden boxes, and it could be seen that the little Marquis had very good intentions towards his good friend. In the study, Su Mingfeng wore a green robe. Other than some weight loss, his spirit was as energetic as usual. Where were the traces of a serious illness? The brocade-clad youth who was facing him tightened his brows and asked, "Avoiding a disaster?" "Exactly." Su Mingfeng glanced at his good friend and sighed. "Now you see that the Su family situation is getting better and better, even as it has had an unbroken streak. For generations, thus with regard to matters on the military horses, there should be no further promotions. But the emperor did not suppress, but instead flattered the Su family. You also made a contribution," Xie Jingxing reminded him. "It was because of the meritorious contribution that father and I had become rather complacent and forgot the danger hidden behind it. When the merits get too big, it becomes a curse. The things I said, you understand, but because the Su family was in the situation, one's eyes were obscured by a single leaf. Now that everything has become clear, one must rein in the horse at the edge of the precipice, as it is just too dangerous." "Doing this is also good," Xie Jingxing nodded. "But now you need to stay at home for a few years in vain." "I only want the Su family to be safe and sound," Su Mingfeng stated. "Enough talking about me. How about talking about you? Su family and Xie family enjoy the ups and downs together. Since the Su family has acted in the nick of time, your Xie family..." He did not continue. Xie Jing's eyebrows rose and then turned the conversation around. "What can he do to me if I don't serve as an official? There's only one Marquis of Lineage with Xie family. He has to take everyone's words into account." Xie Jingxing and Su Mingfeng were different. Because of the Su family, Su Yu had gotten his son to serve as an official early, but Xie Jingxing did not do so, so he only had a leisure post to his name. Many campaigns that he went with Xie Ding was only as a family member. Even if the imperial royalty wanted to suppress the Xie family, they would not beat down a son who would not take over the family clan. "You have deep plans and distant thoughts," Su Mingfeng could not help but laugh. "I did not do it to guard against him," Xie Jingxing lazily said. "He truly did not guard against the imperial. He simply did it to go against his father." "However," he frowned and suddenly turned the conversation around. "How did you suddenly figure out this matter? The previous times that I had reminded you, you did not take it to heart." Su Mingfeng bowed his head in shame. "Emotions ran high and one became complacent, so how would one think that much? This time it was all thanks to my second younger brother." "Your second younger brother?" Xie Jingxing, who was leaning loudly in the chair, sat straight up as a look flashed in his eyes. "That glutinous rice dummock?" That Su Ming Lang was a stupid dumpling, and that was nothing strange. But how was he able to remind the Su family of these matters unless he had taken the wrong medicine? Su Mingfeng explained the ins and outs of everything before saying if it wasn't for second younger brother who acted without thinking, maybe we would have walked into a disaster. Of acted without thinking, Xie Jingxing murmured to himself. Just at that time, a tender voice sounded. "Eldest brother, mother let me bring you some snacks." Su Minglang was carrying a flower-shaped pastry as he walked in with his short little legs. He looked like a round, glutinous ball, and his mouth was covered with a lot of crumbs. Evidently, he had been secretly eating a lot of it on the way. When he saw that Xie Jingxing was still present, he could not help but lower his voice. He did not know why, but he was always somewhat afraid of this handsome friend of his eldest brother. Su Minglang placed the snacks on the table and turned to run away after saying, "Eldest brother, I'm leaving." He did not think that someone would grab a hold of his collar. He turned back and saw the brocade-clad youth gently squat down and pat his head with a pair of livid smiling eyes, but his eye expression was incomparably cold. He asked, "Who taught you that sentence?" Su Minglang stared wide open. "Boil the hound once the rabbit is caught." Xie Jingxing smiled extremely wickedly.